Hi everyone. Today, I want to share a story with you. This story is about the day I went to the airport. I hope you enjoy it and learn English by listening to it. It was a bright and early morning. The sun had just come up. I woke up at 6 a.m. I was very excited. I was going to travel. I was going to take a flight. It had been a long time since I traveled by plane. I got out of bed and brushed my teeth. Then I took a shower and got dressed. I wore comfortable clothes because I knew I would be at the airport for a long time. I wore jeans, a t-shirt, and sneakers. I also packed a light jacket in case it got cold. Next, I ate breakfast. I had toast, eggs, and tea. I wanted to eat something before going to the airport because I wasn't sure if I would find good food there. After breakfast, I checked my travel bag. I had packed everything the night before. I opened my bag and looked inside. I had my clothes, shoes, phone charger, book, and toiletries. I also had a neck pillow for the flight. Then I checked my documents. I had my passport, my plane ticket, and my ID card. Everything was ready. I booked a ride to the airport. A driver arrived at 7 a.m. I put my luggage in the car and said goodbye to my family. They wished me a safe journey. I got into the car and we started driving to the airport. The drive was peaceful. There was not much traffic. I looked out the window and saw the city waking up. Shops were opening. People were going to work. Birds were flying in the sky. I listened to soft music on my phone. I felt calm and excited at the same time. After about 40 minutes, we reached the airport. The driver helped me take out my luggage. I thanked him and paid for the ride. Then I walked toward the entrance of the airport. There were many people at the airport. Some were arriving. Some were leaving. Some were waiting. Everyone looked busy. I took a deep breath and entered the building. First, I looked at the flight information screens. I found my flight number and checked the status. It said on time. That made me happy. I still had 2 hours before my flight. So, I walked to the check-in counter. At the check-in counter, I gave my passport and ticket to the airline staff. They checked my information and gave me a boarding pass. They also took my luggage and gave me a baggage tag. I thanked them and moved on. Now it was time to go through security. I walked to the security checkpoint. There was a line, but it was moving quickly. When it was my turn, I placed my bag, phone, jacket, and belt into a tray. I walked through the scanner. Beep! The scanner made a sound. The security guard asked me to step aside. I felt a little nervous. But he just asked me to remove my watch and go through again. This time, it was fine. He smiled and said, "You're good to go." I collected my things and put on my belt and jacket. I picked up my bag and phone. I was now in the departure area. It was big and bright. There were many shops, cafes, and people. I found a quiet corner and sat down. I took out my phone and called my family. I told them everything was fine. They were happy to hear that. After the call, I looked at my boarding pass. My gate number was B22. Boarding would start in 1 hour. I decided to walk around the airport. I visited a bookstore. I looked at some magazines and bought a new book to read on the plane. I also bought a bottle of water and some snacks. Then I found a cafe and ordered a cup of coffee. I sat by the window and watched the airplanes. Some were landing. Some were taking off. It was fun to watch. I imagined all the people going to different places. Soon, it was time to go to the gate. I followed the signs to gate B22. It was not very far. When I reached there, many people were already waiting. I found a seat and sat down. I looked at the screen. It showed my flight number and destination. A few minutes later, an announcement was made. It said, "Flight 308 to Dubai is now boarding." I stood up and got in line. I showed my boarding pass and passport to the staff. They smiled and said, "Have a nice flight." I walked down the jet bridge and entered the airplane. A flight attendant greeted me and showed me my seat. I had a window seat. I placed my bag in the overhead compartment and sat down. The seat was comfortable. I put on my seatbelt and looked out the window. More people were entering the plane. Some were talking. Some were looking for their seats. Soon, all the passengers were on board. The flight attendants gave safety instructions. I listened carefully. Then the plane started moving. It went slowly at first. Then it reached the runway. I felt a little nervous, but also excited. The plane took off. I looked out the window. The buildings got smaller and smaller. Then I saw clouds. It was a beautiful view. I smiled and relaxed in my seat. During the flight, I read my book and listened to music. I also ate some snacks. The flight attendants offered drinks and meals. I chose a light meal. It was tasty. After a few hours, the pilot announced that we were landing soon. I looked out the window again. I could see the city below. The plane slowly came down and landed smoothly. We reached the gate and stopped. People stood up and collected their bags. I waited for my turn. Then I got up and walked out of the plane. I followed the signs to immigration. At immigration, I showed my passport and answered a few questions. Then I collected my luggage from the baggage carousel. I checked the tag to make sure it was mine. Finally, I walked to the exit. I saw many people waiting. Some were holding signs. Some were hugging their family. I found my friend who came to pick me up. We smiled and hugged. It was a long day, but everything went well. I was happy and a little tired. It was a good travel experience. And that was the story of how I went to the airport. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the story and learned some new English words. Keep listening, keep practicing, and keep learning. See you next time.